Here under the bonnet on the passenger side, you've got your fuel filter at the back here. Your black one down the bottom is your oil filter for the engine. Then the white one underneath the aluminium housing there is your first fuel filter. Okay. On the bottom of the white one, there's a little fuel drain you can undo every now and again, a little bit of water out. You do have your diesel pump on the side here. I got some videos online how to bleed it if you ever do run out of diesel. But your key points are bleeder on top of the filter first. And underneath this little plastic tag here, there's another flathead screw. You undo that to bleed the fuel up into the injector pump, and then away you go. Pretty simple sort of stuff to bleed. No, you don't really need to ever crack the lines or bleed them up the top here or anything like that. It's not really a concern of such. If I bring you this around the side here, you can see that plastic undo on the bottom of that white filter there to undo that. Look, you've got your radiator hose top and bottom. You've got your couple of fan belts on the other side of the motor here. That's your power steering oil. It's just a quarter turn cap with a dipstick on it. Same thing. You don't need to worry about checking that power steering oil. That just gets done when it gets a service. You got your battery in the front there. Obviously, your red for positive, black for negative. On the driver's side, alternator just like your car, starter motor just like a car. You've got your two hydraulic pumps round on here. So your rear hydraulic pump basically does pretty much the whole tractor. It's your front end loader, your 3 or 3 point linkage, all your rear remotes, all that sort of stuff is done by your loader, rear pump there. Your front pump is dedicated only for the power steering. All right, so that's all that one ever does. Your other hydraulic filter in behind this cover on the side here is your other hydraulic filter there. Okay, so that's just another screw-on cartridge. So there's a couple of filters in the box that'll come out with the tractor as well. You got a couple of hoses dangling like this one here. That's a radiator drain. There's another one round on the other side back of the engine, which is a radiator drain as well. Probably one of the other most important things is you've got your screen here in front of your radiator. Okay, there's 2 screens there. You can pull this one up and out and then pull that one across and up and out to get around that hose. Basically keep an eye on how much stuff's getting built up on them. You can give them a brush out, give them a blow off, a battery blower, anything like that works really well for keeping the screens clean. Your radiator water on the top here is basically, it's take the cap off just like a car. Obviously when it's cold, not hot, it'll always be down that inch when you check it. All right, so the water piddles out the hose and then it's down an inch because the water expands. When it contracts, it doesn't have an overflow bottle, so the water will always be down that inch. If you top it up every time, it's just gonna make a mess every time it's gonna piddle a bit out, and you keep diluting your coolant every time you add water into it. So it's probably got proper long life coolant in it. It's good for about 6 years. Anti-freeze, anti-boil, so you don't have to worry when it's snowing down there, you'll be right. But look, first time you use the tractor and actually get it up to, say, a working temperature, not just a running temperature like we have here on the concrete car park and that sort of stuff, when you actually use it for the first time, you will find that there might piddle a little bit more water out. And as you see, if you follow the hose down, it goes down here and it usually ends up piddling on top of the diff there, okay? So if you do smell it the first time you use it, don't be alarmed if it squirts a tiny little bit out, but look, it's only usually a shot glass or something like that, or a tiny bit more. Your air cleaner is probably one of your most important things to keep an eye on. Let me try and do this left-handed. Okay, so if we take them off there, 2 clips, just top and bottom, that goes on there. You've got an outer element here, so they're just a push-in element, and then you've got a woolen element on the inside there. So realistically, your air cleaner is the life of any motor. Clean air is everything. Clean air, doesn't use as much fuel, all that sort of stuff. So as you see, they just sort of push back in like that, pretty simple. This has got top on the top here, and you line it up with the top. We've also got our little, where is it, little red dot we always put on things, lines up. But realistically, you'd be a bit of a judge. If it's raining and wet all the time, there's no dust. You get a couple of truckloads of concrete fines to redo your driveway and you're pushing that round for 2 days, well, that makes a lot of dust and a lot of carry on. So you be a bit mindful yourself as to what you're doing in that respects and what it's going to use. So you might find the whole of winter you never touch your air cleaner, and then look, you check. I always recommend bonnet up, start of summer, make sure there's no bird's nest sitting on top of the exhaust manifold, clean your radiator screens, give it all a bit of a blowout, give it a once over look, oil, water check your fan belt for tension, that sort of stuff, and then get into it in the summer. So your temperature gauge, realistically, it should come up and sit in the position. It should never creep up and then creep down, creep up and then creep down. If it is ever doing that, that's usually referring to your screens. Your front screen in front of the radiator is going to be 80% blocked or something like that. It's not getting the airflow to keep itself cool. But as you're loading it up, going up the hill, the slasher on sort of thing, it warms up and then you turn around and come back down, so it cools down again on the way back down. So if it's ever floating, you always got to say, well, look, it's probably a block screen in the radiator or something like that. But ideally, look, you keep an eye on it a bit over periodic. The time you'll learn what your lawn's like. Some people's lawns, the grass seeds are just horrendous, and it blocks everything up and that sort of thing. And then you got to clean out that screen a bit more often. There is a cover that will go on the side here. We'll put that on before we send it out to you. It's easier to take the video with it off. On your loader, a couple of bits and pieces. So you've got these that's sitting on the top of the arms here. They're your safety stays. So if you put the loader up in the air and you want to work on it, that U channel, all right, on the top here, it's just got the round bit here. That round bit there lines up with the round bit here. The flat edge on the back goes down to the other flat edge on the ram. Okay, so that sits over the chrome shaft when it's expanded, so the loader can't come down and chop you. Number one service accident in a workshop or something like that was a tractor, is someone breaks a hydraulic fitting or undoes something somewhere else and the loader comes down and pins you in between here and tries to kill you, sort of thing. So if you are doing something, but look, I generally take these off and put them in the shed with the toolbox and that sort of jazz, and your tractor box, and also these are for taking the loader off, and as you can see, they rattle around. I usually take them off, put them in the shed as well, because you know they serve no purpose on the tractor. And same thing with the top ones. You're not going to use them if you did break down in the field or something. You're going to need a shifter or a screwdriver or something like that, or you run over a whole heap of bloody barbed wire and it's up around the fan blades or something. Well, you're going to need to go get some pliers or a hacksaw or something like that to cut the wire, and you grab your safety stays while you're there. But I do find over time they start rattling around and carry on, so I just take them off. What else have we got about here on the loader? Your grease points on your loader, as you can see, there's 1,000,001 grease points. Every pin and bush has a lot of all the little red caps. There's no set hours for greasing a loader as per the hour meter, because you'll find you might do 10 hours of slashing and half an hour of loader work. So it's a little bit of case of as required. Like I generally say, every 10 hours worth of loader work, give it a good grease. But if you're going to give it a really good weekend's work, like I said, you're getting that couple of truckloads to do the driveway, well then, look, I really recommend you give it a grease before you start the weekend. Over-greasing does nothing other than make a mess. It doesn't matter. You can never over-grease something in respect of greasing pins and bushes. It just makes a mess. But if you don't grease things, realistically, you run the risk of your bushes wearing out, your pins wearing out, all that sort of stuff. So grease is cheap when it comes down to it in comparison to replacing bushes and pins. So you just sort of do that a bit as you feel fit. But look, I recommend sort of before every big job you got planned, or every 10 hours worth of loader use, or every service it gets a grease, because the grease goes out doing other things. I bet you only have a couple of points to grease on the tractor while we're talking about that. On the top of each hub, there's a grease point. Okay, so you can give that a little bit of a grease. Your front is a rocking axle, so there's a grease nipple there underneath either side. Okay, so they run a sealed unit in there. They're all sealed up, so they don't need as much grease as what a loader pin does. But look, if you give it a couple of pumps, away you go. And same thing on your top here, a couple of pumps every now and again. Look, if you give that a grease every 25 hours or something like that, halfway between service, you're quite good. Your tire ends on the front here, same thing, just a little bit of grease every now and again. If you pump too much grease in the likes of the tire ends, all you do is pop the boots open. Same as a car tire end.